Well, Netflix just released another Netflix movie that feels very much like a Netflix movie. So let's review The Electric State. The Electric State stars Chris Pratt, Millie Bobby Brown, and is directed by the Russo brothers. What's up, guys? Welcome to a brand new 2025 review. It's a Netflix movie. Every now and then Netflix will just drop this big movie out of nowhere, kind of like they did with Axel Foley. This is The Electric State with Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt. And honestly, I didn't really know anything about this movie going into it. Never even bothered watching the trailer. I didn't even know who directed the thing until after I watched it, which is the Russo brothers, who we all know from the Avengers movies and Captain America, Winter Soldier. They are a very capable and great directing team. And if I could give this movie any sort of kudos, I like the direction in it. As far as, you know, the camera work and everything, and keeping it fast-paced and trying to keep the viewer from being bored, I guess, along the way. Doesn't always achieve that goal, but, you know, I'm going to be fair about this and give the movie the kudos that I think it does deserve. But first off, before we get into all that, let's give you a quick plot synopsis. This is like an alternate universe movie because it looks like a movie of the future, yet it's set in the 90s. And honestly, it doesn't give any good reason why it's set in the 90s. It could have been set in the current day, or it could have been set in the future. It has kind of a post-apocalyptic type vibe to it. And basically, in a nutshell, it's the robot world and the human world are kind of intertwined. And I guess what is the dangers of that, of having the robots have their own mission on Earth. And I would say this movie is a little bit overstuffed with robots, and you feel like there's very few human counterparts. You know, there's a few of them. And I do think there's a lot going on in this movie, maybe a little bit too much for what it's trying to do, which is entertain. At the center of the movie, Millie Bobby Brown, she plays Michelle, and she has this brother that is kind of a genius. And so he's very important to the future of the robot world. There's this company by the name of Xtra, which is led by Stanley Tucci. And I do think this is where this movie falters, because he's playing a very stereotypical character that doesn't really stand out on its own. You're going to be comparing him to other very similar type characters, which, funny enough, I just reviewed Mickey 17, and I also thought Mark Ruffalo played just a very stereotypical character that they don't really flesh out that much. They tried to do that a little bit with Stanley Tucci in like one scene where he's talking about his relationship with his mother, his past. But, you know, you get that one little snippet. And I don't even know if it would have made the movie better if you gave more about Stanley Tucci, because, again, this character is just very stereotypical. But Michelle's brother dies, or she thinks he's dead, and then there's this robot that shows up, and it's sort of her brother's consciousness in robot form, and they go on this mission to pretty much save her brother. And she is intercepted by Chris Pratt's character, Keats, I think his name is. And Chris Pratt, I think, is the best part of this movie, although I don't think they utilize him enough. I think he plays this type of character, and there are, you know, definite similarities to Star-Lord. Even like, you know, Han Solo. He's channeling Han Solo, kind of the reluctant idiot hero. He plays that character very well, and I think he does have moments in this movie, especially early on when he meets Michelle, and they're having this kind of psychological tug of war with each other. But I don't think there's enough of that to you know, charm us throughout the rest of the movie. I honestly think the script is the biggest problem with this. And I can see why it went to Netflix, because I've talked about this before. I think a lot of Netflix movies, not all of them, but I'd say most of them are just so forgettable. They're like regurgitated cinema. Cinema that's kind of thrown away. You know, the island of misfit cinema toys, which, funny enough, this movie has a section in it where there's like the island of misfit robots that Michelle and Keats end up at. And so there's a lot of robot personalities that we meet up with. Oh, real quick, guys, there's one part I forgot to mention about this. Why Chris Pratt in the third act of the movie just gets a haircut for no reason whatsoever. I'll never understand. I figured they would give us some sort of reason why he gets a haircut, but there's no reason whatsoever. It's just, did he like shoot this later? I have no idea. It's the strangest thing and it makes no sense. So I forgot to mention that. Definitely wanted to put it right here. Why the haircut, huh? Why? And also you have to mention Juan Carlos Esposito, who has been in just about everything these days. And he's sort of this like bounty hunter type character that, you know, he's given one mission and that's what he focuses on. His mission is to capture the robot that is Michelle's brother's consciousness. And outside of that, he doesn't care, you know? He's kind of like Tommy Lee Jones in The Fugitive. He doesn't care. He just, I got to get to the mission. I don't care what the story is behind that mission. I just have to capture it. And of course, Stanley Tucci has more of a personal connection to this and why he's wanting to capture the boy. And so, of course, those two sort of clash, you know, later in the movie. But there's definitely some world building that's going on here. You do see a lot of mind control with the people of Earth, and they have these like, you know, virtual reality headsets on. So I do think there's a little bit of a message that this movie is trying to get across, but it doesn't like beat you over the head with that. You know, this movie, if I had to give it any kudos, is its sole purpose is to entertain you, and that's it, and just to have fun. And there are some fun moments throughout the movie, but I think the thing that gets in the way of it is you have just a very generic villain in Stanley Tucci. I think it is a little bit overcrowded with the robot world and the robots, and I don't think they have enough of a personality to keep your attention. I think the chemistry there between Chris Pratt and Millie Bobby Brown, it just drops in and out throughout the movie. It's not consistent like a lot of other movies, you know, kind of thinking back to like Short Round and Indy in Temple of Doom, right? That is just very consistent. The relationship between the two, the chemistry, it's just very consistent throughout. And I think consistency is this movie's biggest problem, and it's just so forgettable. And I do think it's a little bit long in the tooth at 2 hours and 10 minutes, and I don't think it holds your attention enough. There is a big robot battle at the end of the movie, which sort of reminded me of like Phantom Menace, you know, the useless robot battle that they had at the end of that one. Millie Bobby Brown, I have to give her kudos. I mean, the girl can cry at the drop of a hat, and she definitely shows up to work to do that, you know, in the moments that she's supposed to. And I think you know, one of the strongest things about this movie is the relationship between her and her brother. So I think there's definite effort here. Not enough for me to give this movie a pass. And for it to be 18% on Rotten Tomatoes, I understand it, but I don't understand it. And the reason is because I know how Rotten Tomatoes aggregate works, of course. And it's just how many critics give it a positive or negative review, or fresh or rotten. And so 18% of critics giving it a fresh rating, I could buy that. But I think an overall score for this movie is far higher than 18%. I would give it probably like a 60%, okay? And I hope my Rotten Tomatoes math didn't confuse you. I'm just trying to say the formula, 18%, is different than the formula for an actual just one movie by one person, you know, their rating. So overall, I'm going to give this a 2 hours loss, and it's a shame because when it started off, I thought, yeah, this looks like it could be fun, and I might end up enjoying it by the end, but it just sort of falters along the way. Also, guys, make sure you are following my other channel, Drumdums Xtra. Make sure you subscribe to both channels. Got a lot of stuff coming this week. I got 2 screenings this week for Snow White. That's going to be an interesting review. And Death of a Unicorn. Also, Ash. That's another movie that I'm going to be seeing soon. So I got a lot of content in front of me. And there's been a lot of clips from my recent podcast, Hit the Bricks, with Davey Deathray and Nick from the Lost River Drive-In. So I've put out a few clips, like 3 clips. I'm going to put out some more here from that. And we're doing this every other Monday, streaming live on the main channel with the clips going to the second channel, okay? Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays, we do Free for All Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums and on my socials. Support me on Patreon. Become a channel member. Buy me a coffee. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.